Sheila.
Megan.
Welcome to your first video
my gosh.
podcast.
I thought about this all day today.
Did you?
I was like, I need to make sure I don't look bad. I need to make sure I didn't spill anything on my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been front of mind.
I try to keep the expectation really low. I never wear makeup.
Yeah.
And then on days like this, when I do, I'm like, see, all I did was put on mascara. What an upgrade.
It's like I look like a real person now.
Yeah. I did have to change my clothes though. And I did think when I woke up this morning, like, oh, I didn't do my full skincare last night. I wonder if it's going to make a difference. No one cares is ultimately.
Yeah. You guys are here for the guests.
Yes.
You guys aren't here for Megan and Sheila to just keep rambling.
That's right.
Y'all are here for the guests. And today we have such fun guests.
It was a really fun and informative.
Yes.
So educational.
Very educational. And I think I was nerding out because I love fire trucks.
Is that our little clue?
Yeah, that is a little clue. But we had the fire chief.
Yeah,
and
Chief
the fire
Waller.
marshal.
Yes, Chief Waller and Fire Marshal Hill.
Mhm.
First name's Don, DJ,
Yes.
but we'll give them their official titles.
Yes.
And it was so informative.
Mhm.
We learned a lot about fire safety in general, but also what that means for a place like historic downtown Snohomish, which
Yes.
was very unique and interesting. And
Right? Fire prevention,
Mhm.
why it's important, and just how friendly.
yeah,
Like everyone, all the volunteers and the full-time, part-time employees at the firehouses, I
Sure.
guess that's what you call them.
yeah,
Just how invested they are in the
Mhm.
community and
so
how much
rooted.
Yes, and how much they want to be there and just help us as
Yeah.
best as we can so that in case an emergency does come up, hopefully not anytime soon,
hmm
they can do their job
Yeah.
effectively.
And there's so many layers to that. So
Yes.
it was really interesting to hear about that and that it really is a partnership. They gave some great resources.
Yeah.
So whether you are, especially if you are a business owner,
Right.
but I was going to say whether you're a business owner or you just frequent downtown or you live here, like it's just really great information overall. So
Yeah. So I can't wait for everyone to listen to that conversation and get
Or
as
watch
excited or watch it. Hello. and get as excited as we are about fire safety.
yeah. So enjoy Chief Waller
Yes.
and Fire Marshal
Marshal.
DJ.
Megan,
Sheila.
I'm back.
I know. I'm actually so
Did you
happy.
miss me?
I did.
Well, Ken did
genuinely.
such a great job filling
Ken does
in.
a good
so-
job, but you're my OG.
Aw, thank you.
I like
Well,
having you back here on the couch.
I'm glad I'm back. And we're joined here with two gentlemen that are very impressive. I'm like a little intimidated here. So we have from the Snohomish Fire District,
Fire District 4.
Fire District 4 to be particular. And can you guys introduce yourself?
I'm Don Waller, the fire chief.
And my name is DJ Hill, and I am the fire marshal.
Welcome.
Such impressive titles. Can you guys tell us more about what each of those titles mean?
I'll start with me. In a junior taxing district, which we are, the fire chief is like the CEO or if it was city government, like a city administrator. So I'm responsible. I'm the head for finance, HR, pretty much all those titles because we're small. And so as a fire chief, that's my role, is basically the appointed director of the entire organization.
Wow. And when you say small, like give it, how small is small?
Yeah. So fire service wise, I would consider us maybe a medium agency because there's so many that are smaller than us, but we're on the smaller side of full time. So we have about 55 full time employees and about 70 total people in our department when you talk part time and volunteers. But Seattle has this 2,000. South County over in Linwood has 450.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So that's why I say we're small. But there's a lot of agencies that are all volunteer and much, much smaller. So we would be a median in the middle,
Gotcha.
the median of the state, but still smaller compared to the biggest of the big.
Small but mighty, right?
Yes.
And then DJ, how does your role fit into that?
Well, my role as a fire marshal is really about prevention. So I'm literally trying to put the fire department out of business but by preventing things that happened here in 1911 where we had a major fire downtown here. And, just actually it was on Avenue B and First. So a lot of education with business owners, advocacy for the business owners for sure. The other branches of prevention, which is the whole package, is the educational piece in schools, and actually from elementary all the way up to through geriatrics. We do a lot of, falls prevention for the older people. The traditional stop, drop, and roll.
I remember learning that.
Yeah, right. Sparky the fire dog, all that stuff. To the teenagers and lithium ion battery awareness. We've had 2 fires in the last couple of months, structure fires here in town, and both of them were caused by lithium ion batteries.
Wow.
So it's really getting messaging out and partnering with the business owners to make sure that their businesses are fire safe and that people can get out of those businesses in the case of emergency.
Yeah. So you're mentioning business owners, and this is what I said, we go on tangents.
That's good.
So it sounds like as a fire marshal, there's inspections that are part of your role, and we don't really see that in residential. Like I didn't have to have anybody come into my house when I bought it. Like we had to make sure there was little alarms, like that was a requirement under closing and everything, but nobody had to come in and check and be like, you're all good to live here. Well, so is that primarily a responsibility on the commercial side and nothing that you really see on residential?
We do multifamily, so apartment buildings, for sure, which is a huge emphasis, just because of the life safety component of that. And typically the way that they're constructed, we call them type 5, but they're wooden buildings, so they have a proclivity to burn.
Yeah.
So making sure that egress is there, the ability to exit, to make sure that fire extinguishers are present. Certainly early warning and detection through smoke detectors inside the units and, a working fire alarm system if they have one. And making sure that all of those systems are being checked on a regular basis.
Yeah.
As far as the residential piece goes, commercial, very much the same. It's really about education, because why would people know the fire code?
Right.
I've got a stack of books a couple feet high, and it's very complex, and all of that code is born out of some tragedy or another.
Isn't that?
Yeah, but most laws, rules come out that way, right? One of the things, a funny example, hopefully not a tragic one, back in college, we had in our residence halls the rule book. One of the rules is you cannot bring a hot tub into your dorm room.
Sure.
Yes, and that was born because back in the whatever year there was, some bright students were like, what'd be cool to have in my dorm room? A hot tub. So they had to add it into the code. But you start stacking those up and you get a couple feet high, right?
I got to ask, what college?
Iowa State University.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But we do
Go
have
State.
that in the rule. Thank you. Thank you.
That is a funny example.
Yeah. But, they got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you two, how does it work to be appointed or hired into your roles? Because you kind of compared yourself to like a city administrator, running all of these different things that need to be done, managing different leads and departments potentially. Are you voted into that role? Because like we have the mayor who then appoints the city administrator. Does someone appoint you? Or is this put out to the people? How does that work?
Back to the city, it's more like a council form of government. So our fire district is governed by 3 elected officials, the board of commissioners. In a fire district, you can have 3, 5, or 7. We still have 3, the minimum start. They hire the fire chief, me, and then most fire districts delegate everything else after that to the fire chief. So they hired me, and then I hired DJ. I hired everybody after that. And so I report to the board with everything I do and how I do it, like a strong a council form of government.
Okay.
So
you kind of have like 3 collective bosses.
correct.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the majority. So I have one boss that have 3 minds.
Gotcha.
That's always fun.
Yes.
And then
That's a
the
good way of putting it.
district, the way that it's, because I would imagine it probably covers multiple parts of the county, but not the whole county. It's not like you just serve the city of Snohomish. So what sort of square footage are we talking about? About like how many acres are you serving? How many schools are within the fire district? Is it the same as the Snohomish School District or different? Like how does that work out?
Yeah. Washington is a little weird. We have what we know as a junior tasking district. Most states don't have that. So we have little fire departments all through each county. So there's like 20 some in Snohomish County.
Oh, wow.
So we cover obviously the city of Snohomish, but then we go out to all the 3 lakes. So Flowing Lake, Panther Lake, 3 Lakes, Dubuque. We go down to actually touch the Monroe city limits on Highway 2. We go down Lord Hill is in our fire district. The bottom part of the Cathcart. We go all the way to Seattle Hill and touch the Everett city limits on the Lowell Larimer Road, up to past north of Highway 2 to Bunkfoss, out to Machias to the Light. So a pretty big area. So
Yeah.
most of the Snohomish School District is in our fire district, but not all.
Mhm.
A
Okay.
little bit is, they go a little bit farther north than we do,
Mhm.
and they go a little bit farther south than we do, right? So we cover some of the area that goes to the Snohomish High School, but we also cover some of the area that goes to Valley View, because Valley View is in our district, and some that goes to GP. And GP is not in our district, but all that stuff on the other side of the river, all those homes on Seattle Hill are in the GP. So we're a little bit smaller than Snohomish School District. We don't have any not Snohomish School District in our.
I see.
Wow.
We have a lot of residents, children that go to those schools, even though they're across the border.
Gotcha.
So we do a little bit of education and stuff in those schools as well, just because
Yeah.
we're serving our constituents here.
That's
So how
still
many-
a large area
60
Yeah.
square
for
miles.
70-ish people to
Yep.
take care of. Well, thank you so much for everything that you guys do for us.
Yeah, and like how many people is that? Is that
32,000 people.
Oh,
32,000 people,
wow.
60 square miles. So, like you said, pretty big geographically, kind of back to that medium size
Mhm.
population wise, but that makes it a little bit more difficult, more challenging. Both DJ and I spent about 20 years in the city of Spokane. It's also 60 square miles, but has 300,000 people.
Oh, sheesh.
Wow.
So
16 fire
and
stations.
16 fire stations. We
And
have
how
three.
many fire stations do you guys have? 3?
We have 3.
And how many
Wow.
staff did you say? 77?
But I grew up and learned fire service in Winthrop that covered 300 square miles with 4 fire stations. So
Oh.
you can see the
Interesting.
dichotomy
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the state.
I'm wondering what that formula is, to decide like how many fire stations to like put in square footage
Yeah.
versus people, because obviously the more spread out people are, the longer it'll take you guys to go to
Correct.
calls, right? If they're on the edges.
And however many people you
Yeah.
have and vehicles you
And
have.
that's a big balancing act. And
Yeah.
we do a lot of strategic planning, a long-term planning. That's kind of what I really brought to the fire district.
Mm.
Because normally you'd want your fire district is what I call geography based, meaning you want one that can drive everywhere in the fire district in 4 minutes, right? So you set it
Gotcha.
all out, and we'd probably have 16 fire stations in our fire district, but our community can't afford that,
Mm.
Right.
right? And each fire station would be going on 10 calls.
Mm-hmm.
So then you look at call volume. Okay, we need to have at least this many calls, but that doesn't work either, because then we would have one fire station, and the people that lived out at 3 Lakes, it would take us 25 minutes to get there. And so as a fire chief, that's what you're balancing. You're balancing that workload, the risk analysis, the base level that our 90% of our, that's kind of 90% is our key. What do 90% of our citizens need? Because we can't reach those weird one-offs.
Outliers.
Right.
And then the geography. So there is no right answer when you
Wow.
get to, and it doesn't matter what you are, because I go back to the Spokane model, they were geography based, but then there were some stations that were just too busy. They had to put extra stations in because you had too much
Gotcha.
call volume. So there is no one formula. It's a balance of all kinds of risk factors
Wow.
that to meet the community's needs. Every community wants something a little different. And so we're always trying to talk to the community. What do you want? What's the balance of risk, reward, cost,
Right.
future planning?
Which makes sense as to the analogy you gave of how it's kind of like being run by a council. Like you have representatives that serve the community and are able to make decisions. So we just had the levy on the ballot in August, and it did pass. Yes.
Yes. Thank you to the community very much. 60%.
Absolutely.
So
Oh, great.
it's really great for us to see that interacts with the community. And we had the one I'm most proud of, one of the highest turnouts of everybody in the county
Oh,
Wow.
for voting?
for voting. Yes,
Wow.
percent.
Good
of-
job, Snohomish.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Props to us.
Exactly.
No kidding.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What
Yeah.
was important about the levy? Why are you glad that it passed? How does that help facilitate all the things that you were just talking about that need to serve the community?
The first reason I'm happy is because it kind of tells us that we think we're on the right path with the community. Because like I said, we're always balancing and we can't make everybody happy. And so are we hitting the mark? And that's kind of the best way that the citizens communicate with us. Obviously, you know that. But what it does is it helps fund our entire operation, because we're really funded by 2 different tax levies, the general tax levy and the EMS levy. That gives us over almost 90% of our funding just between those 2. And so it pays for everything, the Band-Aids in the ambulance, the ambulance itself, the people that drive the ambulance.
Yeah.
Right.
Tires, fuel.
The tires,
maintenance.
fuels.
Mm.
Exactly.
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal. And so we are really on a kind of a change of our identity as a fire department. In the 80s, which doesn't seem like that far to some of us in the room, but others it seems like it was an age ago. But we were all volunteer,
Wow.
and we
That
had
actually does put it in perspective a little bit, because
Yes.
I was born in the 80s.
correct.
That's
It wasn't that long.
And we had almost
40
100
short years ago.
Exactly. We
You
had
don't need
almost
to say how
100
long.
volunteers to do it.
Wow.
we are almost all full-time now.
Mm.
And we have, 40, we're gonna because of the EMS levy pass, we're gonna get to 48 here in a couple months.
Nice.
But we have 48. So 100 volunteers to 48 full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in that time, the call volume is probably doubled or more.
Yeah.
And so
because there's been exponential growth in the population since the 80s.
Exactly. So, I go back to Spokane, they've been full-time, fully staffed since the day they were conceived in
1880.
Filling on me.
Right. And we have had this huge transition. So we're still kind of on the end of that. And so this levy helps us plan for the future capital that needs the stations that are being built, the one over on Pine Avenue, the future equipment we need, because that's different. All the things from, all our capital was built and designed around the volunteer model, and we're now not in that model.
I see.
Making that transition and starting to staff all of our rigs with full-time people. Up until this month, we cross-staffed, which means all the firefighters had to jump on one of a half a dozen rigs to go on the right call. And now at one of our stations, we have 2 crews to take 2 different rigs, the ambience and the engine, plus the under ones.
Is that because the rigs themselves are, I'm using terrible words, furnished, equipped? That's the word I'm looking for. For different things?
Call volume driven.
Yeah, just didn't have enough funding and need to have that many rigs, right? But our need is increasing. And typically you get to the need before you get to the funding.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
You kind of got to prove that the need is there.
Exactly. And so this EMS levy, we started it in August 1st, but we were doing that hoping and assuming that we would get support, because that was one of the things that we had got back for the community, is they wanted that undone. And so because of the EMS levy passing, that will continue from now until, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
That extra staffing. So we increased our staffing by 20% in August.
Wow.
That's a big number. To
do
in one
that's
chunk.
great though.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's kind of like putting in another fire station, if you will. Kind of that same response too. Yeah, it covers that gap, because a lot of times we'll have 2 calls going on at one time. So that allows us to if it's an aid call, the ambulance can go if they can, handle it by themselves, or additionally the engine can go with them. But that frees up that engine to stay here in case we have another aid call or we have a fire response.
Gotcha.
And we know we're in historic downtown, right? These downtown buildings take a lot of manpower when there's a fire. Right. And we just added another company to the downtown station. So we went from having 2 companies to 3. And that means we can get, 33% more work done in that first few minutes, which is hugely important when there's a fire.
And that actually brings up one of the main talking points that Megan and I want to touch upon is, obviously we are blessed to have, this beautiful historic downtown district here that we get to enjoy. But I know that also comes with a price, right? Some of the inherent risks that come with just having historic buildings. Can you guys chat a little bit about what considerations, exist because of the fact that we are pretty old, that we have these historic buildings, and how that impacts, how you guys need to operate and what you do when you go on calls because of the way that these buildings are built and stuff.
It is.
Does it keep you up at night?
It does, actually.
That definitely does me.
Yeah.
When I first came here as chief, before, I recognized this as our greatest asset and the biggest risk.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons I pushed so hard to bring the fire marshals, because our best option is to never have a fire in one of these buildings.
Prevention is key, right?
Exactly. And then if we do, we try to stop at the room of origin, building of origin, block of origin. And that's really our thought. But we also know that if anything ever happens to these buildings, they almost never return. Right. And so we have to stop it small. Coming from Spokane, many buildings that were like this. We fought a lot of fires in that. But Spokane can throw 50 people in 15 minutes at this building.
Right.
I have
18 people in 3 to 6 minutes.
Yeah. Wow. We only have 12 on duty a day now that we've increased staffing. Right. And so using those people wisely and effectively and getting them here quick is extremely important, because fire doubles every minute. And think about trying to drag up a few 100 pounds of equipment and another couple hundred pounds of hose up into this room when you can't see anything. I barely made it and I could see the door.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine, because when Trent and I were furnishing the studio that we're in, so I had to fit both these couches in my RAV4. And every time we thought about buying a piece of furniture, we were like, oh,
How do we get this in here?
the door is only 29, 31 inches wide.
I love that you know that. Your engineer mind.
Yeah. Because I was like, I didn't want to buy something and, have to return it. But that was always the constraint, right? And in my head, I'm like, how much does this weigh? Because between the two of us, like, I cannot lift worth anything. And it's like, poor Trent can only do so much by himself. And it's like, it's hard for us to like do all of this because it's like, man, dragging the AC up here, etc. So I can only imagine you guys, like you said, needing to do that without visibility, carrying pounds and pounds of equipment before you even get to dealing with the fire itself.
And navigating a building you don't know.
Right.
It sounds funny, but think about hiding an Easter egg up here somewhere, blindfolding you down out on the street,
Jeez.
and saying, go find it. We only got 15 minutes. And then you got to come out and
if you don't find it, somebody dies.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Jeez.
And then people are yelling at you.
Right.
You can't hear anything. And so yeah, it's very labor intensive. It's very stressful. And these buildings are very, very tricky in fire. And that's another reason that we're getting new equipment. Like we're getting a ladder truck that we've never had before. It's not only for the future growth because we've allowed 5-story buildings in the city, but these buildings, it's critical.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to Spokane a lot, but I want to tell a story because it's kind of impactful of what it did. So one evening, the fire truck gets dispatched to a dumpster fire.
A literal dumpster fire. Like a fire in a garbage dumpster.
That's like a no big deal in Spokane. One truck goes, probably not even in a hurry.
Sure.
Like 2 o'clock in the morning, midnight. They get there, dumpster's on fire. Yep, they put it out.
Okay.
Not a big deal, right?
Okay.
One of them notices there's still this glow on the ground.
Okay.
So they spray some water under there. The glow doesn't go away. They finally push the dumpster away, and the basement had been on fire for a long time, and
That's
it actually
what set
started.
The dumpster
there was a little hole in the brick, and there was so much heat coming out. It started the dumpster on fire through the metal of the dumpster.
Oh my gosh!
It was a historic film photography studio that was full of nitrocellulose film, like old style film, which is incredibly flammable. And the BTU, or the heat release on that is just phenomenal. But they'd been in business since the turn of the century, and all that archive.
Loss.
Wow.
Yeah,
I was on duty that night and the next day, so I fought that fire for almost 24 hours.
Oh my gosh!
It had been burning in there so long that it had burned the stairs away that went down into the basement. One of our firefighters fell through, barely got caught. Had to go to the ICU. Yeah, his arms got caught in the hole, and we were able to pull out. But we fought that fire for almost 24 hours, and we were blessed to save the block.
Wow.
But that whole building got lost.
And neighboring buildings?
Gosh.
No, we kept it to that one building, but it was, what, a 6-story building?
yeah, like
6 stories. Oh my gosh.
So, and then, to speak to what you're saying, we did save the block, but the businesses were, one of them was a restaurant. It was like one of the very high end steak restaurants, out of business for almost 2 years. Much like the furniture store up on 2nd Avenue here. Relatively small fire from the outside. We got there quickly. Tapped the fire.
Months of recovery.
Years. To Dawn's point, I can't remember what the exact statistic is. There's that word. But, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70% of businesses that suffer fire will never open again.
Wow. That's really, really high.
And, it's the tax base. It's the jobs.
Insurance.
It's the visible, impact to the community. So that, that's what we're really interested in. There's a lot of redevelopment going on downtown. We're starting to put in, I was just in a building the other day. They're putting 6 apartments just down the block, up above. So we're starting to get some of that.
Down here on First Street?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to guess.
Exactly. Yeah. They're doing some great work upstairs and arched doorways and really, got that Snohomish vibe. But, that again presents challenges to us because, these buildings are old.
Yeah.
We could talk ad nauseum about building construction and stuff like that, but there's just a lot of places for fire to hide.
Yeah.
And it, like Dawn was saying, it just takes a tremendous amount of work and knowledge to fight the fires in these old buildings.
And as much work with EMS. I mean, think if DJ had a heart attack right now. It takes
knock on the wood. No,
it takes a ton of people to get, like you said, these buildings were not made to get people up and down easily at all.
No.
Yeah. I can only think of like 2 or 3 buildings that have multi-floors that have elevators.
You said one had a water elevator.
Yeah,
the engineering building.
Warehouse on
Yeah.
Avenue C,
It's very
right?
cool. So, I mean, it was not atypical for us on a situation like that, again, with a ladder truck to bring patients out of some of these buildings via the ladder truck, just because it was, so it's kind of a Swiss Army knife, if you will. Again, talking to multifamily on upper levels, ladder trucks carry, hundreds and hundreds of feet of ladders. A standard fire engine will carry typically a 24-footer and what we call a roof ladder. But getting those ladders up to windows for, not just the big ladder on top, of course, but the smaller ladders up to effect rescue is, absolutely paramount to a successful outcome.
Yeah. DJ, you had chatted with us about Knox boxes, which came up because we had a literal dumpster fire. Do you want to tell the story about that and kind of how we got into this?
That fire came out, it was last winter. I know it was cold, so it was winter.
Yeah.
But about 6 o'clock in the morning, I got a call for a working fire downtown. Working fires are jargon for,
It's on fire right now.
Fire, right?
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, working fire.
Yeah.
So, it's one of the very few times that I've driven code. Well, that's just not my job to be on the street anymore, but, when we have a fire, I went. So, got footage coming around the corner, coming up first off of D, and I didn't see anything. Come around the corner to where edit is, and where's that on?
A.
Right on the corner, first and A. It's the old, iconic bank. And there was a ripping fire coming out of a dumpster. There's a dumpster there, and there's also a recycling bin, and both of those were consumed. And the saving grace of that whole fire is they just installed new windows on the backside of the building, and they were double pane windows.
Where the fire was burning.
Correct. And I've got some great pictures, but the
great pictures of that fire. I'm sure Rochelle loves those.
The outside pane failed, the inside pane held. Just on the inside of that was a rack of clothing, and regardless if the building would have suffered a lot of interior fire damage, had that window failed, all of our inventory would have been lost. So one of the challenges to that building was their front door. It's the original OG, architectural, from 18 whatever the heck. And, one of the things that we balance when we're getting into these buildings is trying to take some care, balance that against speed and time. And long story short, we took out a window as opposed to cutting the door with one of our saws and doing permanent damage. The point of this is there is a system, and we call them Knox boxes, and those little kind of innocuous they look like a little safe. Sometimes they're recessed, sometimes they're surface mounted, but inside those boxes are the keys to the building for us to get in. And as the chief mentioned, fire doubles every minute. And then the other, on the EMS side, we say time is tissue. So, we start thinking about brain death and stuff at 5-6 minutes and irreversible damage to cardiac muscle. Having the ability to get into buildings quickly, but also giving reassurance to the buildings that those boxes are secure. We are the only ones that have the keys to those boxes. PD doesn't. It's just the fire department. Not that we
can't trust those police officers.
But it's just,
Chief Alanis, I don't know.
It's just born out of the fire service and our need to get into the buildings.
Makes sense.
Over and over again. And, balancing, property preservation with property destruction. If you're to have an alarm system in a building, do you want us kicking in the door? And because, to replace those doors are really irreplaceable just because of the vintage of the doors. But, so we're really pushing the Knox Box program. We're partnering with the HDSA we haven't exactly discussed how we're going to do that, but we have a little bit of money to raffle some off or something along those lines. Rochelle's kind enough to be doing an interview with us, and we're going to get her set up with a Knox Box and have her share her experiences. Because, I was a business owner here in Snohomish 30 years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers Black Cat Antiques, but they were in a kitty corner right over here. And we had the entire basement, also rented...
Star Center?
No, footage at, I'm going to say, Victoria Village.
Victoria Village,
Yes, I had something else stuck
Steve
in
and
my
Marilyn.
head. But it was fun to meet them again after 30 years, But, to think about that phone call that, hey, your business is on fire from that perspective, I can really sympathize and empathize with.
I know. I had to call her. It was the worst. I'm like texting her, like, I know it's early. I'm so sorry about you, but your building's on fire.
Yeah. 100%. And the ability to get into those buildings for both fire and EMS is just absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And, we don't want to make a judgment call from the outside that there's not a problem.
Right.
Like,
or that there's not a person inside.
Right.
Or a person, correct. So, just that ease in entry, the, minimizing damage or zero damage. We're going to an e-key system, which is electronic. So we will be able to have our automatic gate partners get access as well through a secure methodology. We can track who opened the door, when they opened the door. The nice thing about the e-keys, I can remotely shut those off. Say if we lost one. I could shut those off. If we lose a traditional key, it's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah. Someone's getting fired.
Well, someone's going to have some heartburn. We'll put it that way. So we're really pushing that, that and addressing. Downtown is horrible for addressing.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool program. I know, I'm working on it.
Not biased at all.
I really am. We've had some conversations leading up to this, and it's actually been really cool in my own research, which is why it's taking some time. But like trying to find some historic preservation grants, and the people that I've talked to so far are really excited about it because so far no one that they know of has requested money for this. Like it's kind of a different way to look at historic preservation, but it's actually a very practical way. And then also through the databasing, because it's like you need to know where you're going, who's in there, and even just the example of the building that we are in, HDSA is in, the Marks building, there is a different key to get inside. There's iron gates on multiple areas. So just cutting through an iron gate to get inside would take forever. It's not even just a wooden door that you can cut down,
Correct. Well, and back to that iron gate, we might be doing it in completely black smoke.
Exactly.
So again, do it blindfolded now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's different keys for each floor. So we have a key on the 3rd floor. The people on the 2nd floor have a different key. And so it's not just access to the building, it's also the data behind that, which I understand is why you're saying the downtown district is a nightmare. And I promise I am working on it. But it takes a long time because there's so many, like I might have the address and I might know the suites and I might know all the businesses in there. But then I'm working with either tenants or property owners to be like, what's the actual situation? For example, the Marks building, what's your situation? And I'm finding there's a lot of them that are like that. So like, how do we partner with you to help educate so that you don't only have access and that we can fund those Knox boxes so that we have as many of them downtown as possible, but also that you guys are empowered enough to know where you're going when you have to,
Well, I mean, good visible addressing, especially at night. It's hard to walk in somebody else's shoes, but, picture yourself getting up and to an alarm, jumping in a truck, getting dressed, jumping in a truck, flying downtown, and being in a fire 3 to 5 minutes later, and trying to find that addressing.
Yeah.
A lot of buildings have addresses on them, but they just can't see them.
Yeah.
So, there's the adrenaline factor. There's the, our desire to be quick, all of those things, anything that the public can do to help us.
Yeah.
But it's not just us too. It's you're walking by at 1:30 in the morning because you just came out of the concert and you called 911 and you're like, where's the fire? I don't know. It's somewhere between
it's like the brown building with brick.
Right. And so now we're going to a fire somewhere between A and B.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I think it's by Gorilla Bites.
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just
how do you spell gorilla?
You're doing all that and you're trying to make all these decisions and all that time just takes time. And then we go to the wrong building and waste time
or
there and we break the
we missed the ideal hydrant because we thought it was down. It was all this weird.
Yeah.
And especially with the way that these buildings get rented out. You mentioned tenants, Megan, but like how the buildings are cut up, you're renting one room to this person, one room to another person. They might have different keys, etc. All of that is just like further complexity for you guys to go through.
Take a look at this building.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in 6S, right?
Yeah.
What does that
Never
mean?
been here before.
Yes.
Why would you think 6S is on the second floor in the middle on the south side? Like once you get here, it made sense to us once we got up there. But again, everything's smoky.
Yep. You
right?
can't see anything.
fire starts in here, you run out of the building until it's in 6S. By the time we get here, everything's smoky. How do I get to
what
6S?
Does success mean?
I feel like Trent is going to have anxiety after this episode.
then you throw the next layer on top of that is that we know that there's a family of 4 up there.
Right.
And that brings things to a whole different level.
Yeah.
And you know, from our strategy and tactics, and we won't get into all that business, but you know, that's us changing gears and going about business a whole lot differently than we would for a regular structure fire.
So then, besides the Knox boxes, what other things could, especially I'm thinking business owners, but obviously acknowledging that there are people who live down here in the historic district, but what additional things can people do to really help you guys so that, you know, during these events, you guys can do your job effectively and efficiently?
For business owners, one, I want business owners to know that I'm not here to shut them down. Or, you know, the fire marshal, you know, I'm not wearing a badge tonight. And I said that at the HDSA meeting the other night. I mean, that's just not who I am. I'm here to advocate for businesses. I'm here to advocate for businesses on each side of this business here. It's really a partnership, block by block. If we have one in the middle that chooses to be, you know, less than responsible, that creates problems for everybody else. So it's a matter of education. I'm certainly willing to work with the business owners, do the education piece. Like I said before, why would people know? The good news is there's one of me and 600 businesses. So, you know, the chances you see me, you know, every week are
knocking
pretty
on
slim.
doors or something.
But, you know, making sure that your exits are clearly marked, making sure that there's adequate room in your businesses for
Egress,
people to get in and out, make sure that, you know, exits aren't blocked or locked when they should be, making sure that you're not over capacity for your building. You know, there's story after story of tragedy because people didn't follow or didn't know the fire codes. That's really my purpose here is to educate, to try to get people to be just self-compliant, right? Through education. And, you know, by far and away, there are very, very few businesses, you know, even in our experience in Spokane, where business owners are just, you know, throwing up brick walls.
They don't care.
They don't care. They don't want to. You know what I mean? I mean, that is by far the exception rather than rule. So, you know, it's just getting out there and letting people know that we're here. And that we're here for the right reasons and you know, creating relationships. You know, I had the opportunity to, I got a frantic call from the owner of Visible Coffee that just opened up, and you know, he needed an occupancy sign, and so I wrote him a variance, you know, because it didn't come from Amazon in time, and you know, so just write something, stick it up on the wall, and we'll call it good. And you know, he got it up there. Great. I stopped by, had a cup of coffee this morning. It's a great little business.
It's so cute.
They're here.
Yeah, you know, they did a great job, and that's what we want to see in Snohomish. You know, my wife calls this town idyllic. My wife's a retired BC from Spokane County.
Wait, what's a BC?
Oh, battalion chief, response chief.
Oh.
She was chief level officer. Anyway.
So she tells you what to do at home, is what you're saying.
Unquestionably so, yes. Yeah, and I say, yes, ma'am. She refers to Snohomish as idyllic. And, you know, like I said, we did business here, raised our family on income from Snohomish years and years ago, and that's always held a special place in our heart. But, you know, that idyllic, I actually looked it up today, and it's, you know, like pastoral, beautiful, peaceful. And that's really our job. Is
keep it that way.
Is to keep it that way. So, you know, I don't worry about it at all.
Well, I know the business owners at the meeting that you were at found that really, really helpful. And even Debbie, I just met with her on Saturday. Right before I met with you,
that was after or before.
And one of our follow-up items, she was like, I remember he was there. I don't remember his name, but he offered. Yes. He offered that he would come in and he would show me what could be better.
Absolutely.
And she was like excited about it. So she doesn't look at it as like, oh, DJ's walking around telling us what to do. She saw it as an invitation to make sure that she is set up for success and safety, you know, and I think that that's the attitude of most people, especially because people do appreciate and value being in a historic district. And I think for the most part, people understand
And they want to maintain this, right?
Yeah. And then
otherwise we're Linwood.
It could be lost, so easily. And anything you can do to prevent, as much as possible, I think everybody is on board with, especially since we're willing to enable them to do that and partner with them to do it.
And like from a business perspective, right? It's your inventory that's in these stores.
And that's my point, right?
Right.
They're not having this, I'm going to, save a buck. I mean, they have that's their livelihood. That to my point about doing business here before.
Yeah.
It's like they have a vested interest in and making sure their livelihood is
maintained.
Yeah. Is maintained 100%.
And we kind of have two different things. So DJ will help with the inspections and make sure your code, and like you said in the beginning when we were talking, all that code comes from tragedies, right? But we also have just the crews, right? And so basically if you think about what we talked about is the Knox box and the signage, it's all about access, right? It's letting us know when to go, where to go as fast as we possibly can, right? Having signage on the doors like this door leads to these this leads to 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Right? Because I haven't been through all the buildings, but having been to many, many buildings like this, there's probably an entrance. Some of the buildings will have an entrance on the front, 2 inches on the front, 1 on the back, 2 on the front, 3 in the back, right? So knowing which entrances lead to what numbers always helps. But what I was going for is our crews also need that information, right? So a lot of people think that's the same as the code inspection. Our crews just want to come down and look around. So if there's a fire, they know what it looks like. But a lot of businesses feel that that's an intrusion, right? Because you have 4, 5, 6, 7 firefighters walking around. We have 4 shifts. So that means 4 different days of 4, 5, 6 firefighters walking around. But that is hugely helpful.
Yeah.
You walk through those buildings, you will remember, like if there's a fire here a year from now, I'm going to remember right where 6S is, which is also, I know where 6N is.
Yes.
I know what it leads to. Firemen are weird. I will remember the layout of this floor. That's the kind of stuff that we've been trained over our 35-year career. I will remember all this, and it's just built into you. So getting our crews that just want to come and walk through, we might want to put the ladder up and get on the roof because that tells us how the roof is built and what's on the hazards up on there. And so just letting our crews just come in, they're not going to tell you about the exit signs and the extension cords and all that.
They're not going to do DJ shop.
Exactly. They just want to look around and see where doors lead to, where hallways lead to. How do I get into that room? How do I get into this room? To get to the 3rd floor, I got to go to the back side. That is hugely helpful.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Like, that just sounds fun to me. Like, I was like, do you guys want to come to our house and like evaluate?
Oh, you want to host?
Like, that sounds like really fun and informative.
It is fun. So my dad is a silversmith. And I was in family business with him forever. We were down on Aurora in Seattle. And back when there was lots of funding and lots of cooperation, the firemen would come in all the time. And it was always different ones. Like you kind of meet different crews. And it was great. Like we usually had fun with them and got to know who they were. And they would come in regularly enough that there was no threat behind it. It was like always for our own good. And we had all sorts of crazy stuff in there with the industrial sort of work that we did. But it was a pleasant experience, for both sides, I think.
I think what people sometimes don't consider is that the firefighters, they live in this community.
Yeah.
They spend
they're your neighbors.
Well, they spend over 25% of their lives right here, living here, shopping here for lunch, taking place in Klahia Days, taking place in Balloon Glow. All these fantastic events that make Snohomish what it is. And they are truly invested as individuals in this community as well. We have a lot of our firefighters that live here, right here in Snohomish and the surrounding areas, and this to them is home.
Yeah,
the Panther means something to us as a fire department.
Yeah.
We really take that very seriously. That Snohomish pride, and that's why there's a Panther on the truck, which is. I won't say that.
And I think we feel that too. I know that I am a bit of a nerd and also like a little kid on the inside. I love it when you guys bring your trucks out during events. Like, I literally am like a 5-year-old where I'm like, "What?
Get away, kid! It's my turn."
Like, can we do an adults only touch a truck? But
that's actually not a bad idea.
But it's like, what does this knob do? What does this gauge do? What does this computer, tell you, the information that you need or whatever? Like, to me, that's really, really intriguing.
Well, that's why drivers are called engineers in the fire service.
There you go. Yeah. But I think I appreciate that you guys are very visible in the community. I feel like, parades that you guys are a part of, the touch a truck at like farmers market and things like that all just bolster this idea. Like you guys said, you guys are our neighbors. You guys are our community. We're all in this together. You guys value, the having Snohomish like this as much as we do. It's not like we're, two different sides of the ball game here. And so can you guys talk about how you guys prioritize? Like, I know you guys are all probably very, very busy, but how do you guys prioritize like being in the community, and like what things do you guys enjoy doing and hope you can do more in the future?
I'll talk about that, but I want to go back to the being involved. The firefighters would love to be down in downtown more and more business, but we're really cognizant of not, interrupting, right? Because when you bring a truck down, you block 5 parking spots and trample through. So when you ask what a business would do is just invite our crews to come.
Absolutely.
Come look, because they want to so bad, but they are really holding themselves back because they don't want to interrupt your business, because we know that's your livelihood. That's your thing. We don't know the best time to come. Is it 9 a.m? Is it 9 p.m? We work 24/7, so it doesn't matter. But if you want the firefighters to come look through, they want to learn about your building. They want to learn about your business. They want to learn about everything about that. They just want to be invited in so they don't feel like they're intruding on your space as a business owner.
I'm glad you said that. That's a great point.
So how can they contact you for
911? No.
I feel like some people will take that to heart.
If you get on our social media or our website, snohomishfire.org, it's an easy one. Just there's links on there to email. The chief email is just chief@snohomishfire.org. That's an easy one. Email me and say, hey, we're looking, we would love to do this. Then I will put you in touch with the response chiefs that kind of organize all that. But like I said, we are all building construction nerds and, business nerds, and we want to be in the community. And so back to now, transition to your question is, we try to be involved in everything we can in the community. We love, like I said, I grew up in Winthrop, Washington, tiny little town, right? Went to Washington State University, Pullman, another tiny little town.
Excuse me.
Geez.
I worked in Spokane, but I lived
That seemed intentional.
up north between Deer Park and Schuyler. So when I was looking for chief's jobs, I didn't want to go work in another big city. I had done my time in Spokane, and I was kind of like, I want to get, that was cool when I was young.
Yeah.
And then when I was middle-aged,
Not so much.
But I was looking, and a friend got me to look here, and I'm like, I don't want to go to the west side. I mean, it's all
east side, west side.
Well, I envisioned, even though I grew up in Washington, I envisioned everything was Linwood, right?
Yeah.
But I came over here, and I came down to downtown. I was like, because I had never honestly been to Snohomish downtown, right? Highway 2 just bypasses,
drive by,
i.e. the bypass, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like
the cutest thing on earth.
Exactly. And then I drove out and around, and like, this is literally what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Just right.
And then when I got here, I kind of was expecting the bubble to burst, meaning I figured it's not going to actually be like Winthrop when I grew up, because Winthrop was not like Winthrop when I grew up. It's been,
time has passed.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it really is. The community here is still that really community centric. It's very
small town feel.
100%. And we're a strange department. Most of our firefighters either grew up in Snohomish, went to Snohomish High School, or live there now, which is not common in the fire service anymore.
Oh, really?
We are hugely invested in the community, and so we participate in. We try not to say no.
Yeah.
Right. And our firefighters do a tremendous amount of job. They put so many hours into doing that, because most of that we have to do off duty, right?
Yeah.
We can't pull the duty crews to come do that. They're doing
that makes sense.
911 calls.
You say it.
But that takes an organizational effort to do this, and we're doing it. We are involved in just a tremendous amount of things. And Chief Osborne, our assistant chief there, is kind of our community coordinator, for the lack of a better term. He's trying to do all that stuff, and then we have to schedule it all. So just email us again to that we want something. We try not to say no. We say yes to almost everything and anything we can, because like I said, we want to do what the community wants, and the only way to know what the community wants is to interact with them when and where we can. Like we all know, they don't usually come to you, so you have to go to them, and that's kind of our effort. Is we want them to know what we're doing, and we want to know what they want.
I think that's really great that you. I'm sorry, DJ.
It's okay.
That you guys build that familiarity, because it's like Greg, Chief Osborne. He's phenomenal. Like they helped out with radios for the solstice walk, and they had people present because it's dark and the solstice walk is getting more and more populated and it's a small space. And I asked him, he was like, absolutely, we'll make that happen. Like, we'll prioritize that for you. And then being at like all the parades and making sure you're in the front in case you got to jot off something. But I think it's nice for families, especially with kids, to be able to have relationships outside of scary emergency situation. Because then it's like, God forbid there is something that affects your family. At least it's familiar. And we've even experienced that in our own family. And it makes a big difference because it was like, kind of a surreal experience, but I was like, I know all of these guys on my porch right now. And I feel just a little bit less, I don't know. It makes you feel more at ease that even though you're in a bad situation, there's familiar faces there welcoming you. Yeah. You know, and I think that is just real testament to how invested your district is. And it does make a really big difference when it comes down to scary situations, you know?
That gives us our opportunity to, you know, get our prevention messaging out too. Yeah. So whenever we are at those events, we take the time to hand out, you know, we call it swag, but you know, helmets and coloring books and things like that, trying to reinforce escape plans, smoke detectors, you know, always doing our best to put that messaging out in the forefront of families' minds. Yeah. Because that's our absolute worst day. Yeah. Is you know, we call them a grab or whatever, but going in and kids are especially tough. So, you know, we'd rather do the work on the front side
for sure
of that than on. Yeah, we're going to do it that way too. But you know,
we have, and I just want to mention 2 programs. I say we're really community based, and that goes back to kind of 2 programs that I want to just touch on, and Greg runs one of them, which is our Explorers. Yeah, and so. At 14, you can join our Explorers program. There's a fairly amount of waiting list, but I encourage everybody to apply. But basically, we start training kids. They don't get to go on calls or anything, but they do all the training. They learned about what being a firefighter might be, and do they want to do that? And then if they do want to do it, they have a leg up, right? And so we have hired a ton of people from our Explorers program.
That's so cool.
We also, because they often go from the Explorers program, which is a kids a volunteer thing, to our part-time program. I said we used to be all volunteer-based, but we still have a vestige of that, and that's our part-time program. And you're not a full-time firefighter, but you do all the same things. We send them to the same academy, the same training. They ride on the truck. They take a position just like our full-time people. But it's another way. We're shooting for 12 to 18, and we haven't been able to get above 5 the last 3 or 4 years because they get hired as full-time firefighters, and that's a good thing. But they come in as a part-time firefighter, and you go to the academy, you get a full-time academy, you start learning to be a firefighter, you are being a firefighter, you get that experience, and then when you're testing, you have a leg up on everybody. And since we changed that program, whatever it was, 2 or 3 years ago, must be more than 4 years ago, every one of our part-time firefighters, they get into that as the goal to be a full-time firefighter. Everyone has in 2 years or less. Wow. Right? So we have all these ways that community people can get into the fire service that was normal when I was a kid, that is not normal now. Right? And so all those other pathways are slowly falling away from people, and we are maintaining them. That benefit is we still have mostly Snohomish people in our fire department, which is a huge benefit. Yeah. And we want to keep those programs, bringing those kids in and bringing those young adults in.
So how old do you have to be to become a firefighter? Just
now 18.
18.
Wow. I started when I was 16.
So young. Wow, 16.
Yeah,
that is scary.
Kind of funny. I was just thinking all of our chief officers, I think, started out at volunteers somewhere. And that was our introduction to the fire service. I got started a little bit later, but I didn't really consider that. And, you know, another thing people don't consider is, you know, the volunteer firefighter, that they have to meet the same exact standards that paid or part-time firefighters do as well. So that, you know, you balance that against, you know, dual income families and all of that, the time that people have, it's an incredible investment of time.
Yeah, sure.
And that's just the training piece, let alone going on the calls and stuff. So that, you know, that's that battle that's nationwide.
Yeah.
We're trying to get kids to understand that this is a profession and a career.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to reach out to high schools and to colleges. And, you know, I was a college athlete. We're trying to go down those avenues to get people to consider.
Different pathway.
I remember distinctly when I was in college, my mom's like, the Seattle Fire Department's hiring. And I was like, well, why would I want to do that? But I didn't have anybody at that time that I knew in the fire service and to kind of
give you like the background and the story and the possibilities.
And, so Chief and I and the others are trying to like, brainstorm, how can we reach people? And how can the younger set and we're doing a lot more social media and trying to, I'm trying to put my Gen X brain in Gen Z. It's very, very difficult. But we're trying to figure out all those different ways to get interest in both the part-time program and the full-time program. So if anybody is interested, we're certainly more than happy to talk to them and kind of get them down the right path. I had someone contact me today, as a matter of fact, about it, and we're more than happy to spend some time, getting people directed down that path.
Yeah,
I think that's a great opportunity. So where are you going to be next in the community? Do you have anything scheduled that you guys are
What's on the calendar?
showing up at?
I think Block Party was our last big one. What's the next?
Isn't there something on Halloween, like a blood drive?
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding. Thanks.
You.
That's new. As a matter of fact, the city of Snohomish is guiding that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's perfectly fitting for Halloween.
I'm new, so Sherry Arrington, if you're out there, if I misspeak, I'm sorry. But it was kind of an organic event that happened downtown here, and the business owners got involved. And who doesn't like kids in costumes, right?
Yeah.
So I think, just from a public safety, emergency management point of view, we wanted to try to
have a presence on Halloween.
Well, have a presence and make it safer, obviously, for the kids. I mean,
we appreciate that.
There's nothing worse than a smashed pumpkin. So, working with Public Works in the city, doing some signage with the Explorers will be involved. Fire department will be involved. PD, of course, Chief Alanis is committed to be involved and just make sure it's a fun, atmosphere. And we're also going to be doing a blood drive with the Red Cross, kind of a vampire themed blood drive. I think we're going to probably do that up at the Carnegie on that day too.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
I heard it might be a friendly competition between the PD and the fire department. If you can get as many people as possible and
try to soothe hurt feelings. I think the city will probably be involved with that. So maybe it'll be a three-way thing. And I told PD that they could bring the sheriffs in if they were
on their best behavior.
Exactly. So friends, family, whatever, go sign up for who you want to sign up for. But so that's kind of the next big event. And then, we have some Christmas stuff, in the offing. It's kind of hard to talk about that in August, but
I know it's right around the corner.
Our big season is kind of the Easter parade to Block Party.
Oh, really?
We try to get it to every farmer's market.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. And then you have, Klaya and all those things in that summer. National Night Out.
Capitalizing on the little sun that we get every year. Right?
Yeah. So that's kind of our big community season. It kind of,
gotcha.
Late fall through early spring is a little bit slower. But we usually do have a touch of truck in the fall, winter.
Yeah. And you guys partner with the food bank on things sometimes. And I've seen you at Hagen doing food drives. And I love how invested you are in all the different places. It's great.
Yeah.
So there's the stuff going on down at Stalker Farms for Halloween too. And, we're working with the Snohomish County Fire Marshal's office, kind of an aside or whatever, but, so I take care of the city of Snohomish. Everything outside outside the city limits is taken care of by the Snohomish County Fire Marshal's office, based out of Everett, and we're developing relationships there for emergency management and things of that nature to just try to be a little bit more aware of what's going on, big event wise outside the city as well. So it's not just here,
right?
That emergency management piece has the entire district.
Yeah.
Man, never a boring day for you guys, is it?
We try not to.
So our closing question.
Yeah,
I know. It's a real doozy. We like to ask you, if you could describe your perfect day in downtown Snohomish, what would that look like for each of you? I'm going to assume no fires.
Yes, I was just going to say no fires, number one.
So my perfect day would be I would go get a cup at Proper Joe's, sit out on the patio in a nice, summer morning,
Mhm.
quiet, right?
Mhm.
Maybe a Wednesday, so there's not a lot of traffic downtown. Then I'd make way to the Union Bakery to get some breakfast.
Mhm.
Got to spread the love.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if you see the theme here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Food.
Yeah,
Yes.
We're always
exactly.
centered
We're
around
always,
food.
Exactly. And then just walk through the businesses.
Yeah.
I just love looking at, the antiques in the thrift shop, and then, maybe the Oxford for lunch and Toto's for dinner.
Mm.
Ooh,
That
that's
sounds
a good
perfect.
lineup.
Yeah. What do you,
Yeah. That sounds like a full
then
day.
I probably couldn't eat for the next week, but I would
But
be,
you'd be satisfied.
I would
yes.
be. So I love obviously the food and the atmosphere
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy like Christmas shopping.
Mm.
So the streets decorated, kind of a Charles Dickens
Yeah.
thing going on. My mom, she passed away about a year ago. She was a interior decorator, and she had space down here in Snohomish too, as well. So, doing some antique shopping. It's kind of funny. We don't have one antique in our house at all, which is neither here nor there. But I like automotive memorabilia, things like that. So again, the food. My wife and I really like Thai food. Chief and I, we tend to gravitate towards Thai food as well. There's some
Got
great
some good
options
Right.
down here, and I've been known to have a beer or two as well. So down at the Oxford. So,
Yeah.
So
That sounds like a great day.
yeah. I mean, it's hard not to have a good day downtown Snohomish.
That's so true.
Right. Well, thank you all so much for everything that you guys do for the community.
Absolutely.
I think, like I said, we can really feel you guys' presence in the community. We love seeing you guys around, whether children or adults. Again, adult touch a truck night, please. I want to push all the buttons. But also, thank you for taking time out of your busy days to come talk with us and educate us, and hopefully educate our audience too about, what we can do to keep our Snohomish the way that we love it without a fire.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time to ask and listen. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. No, it was
and go
super great.
Panthers. We'll be at all the football games as well.
Yes.
Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah, so pretty excited for football to start.
Yeah. It is here.
Yep.
If it's fall.
Yeah. Thanks again, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Snohomish Storytellers, brought to you by the Historic Downtown Snohomish Association, produced by Red Trucks.